Hi everyone, my name is Lewis. I'm Australian, I'm a stand-up comedian, and I'm going to talk to you today. And stand-up comedy, at its very basic, what I do is I stand on stage and I tell jokes that I've written myself. That's what my job is. Now, I started stand-up comedy when I was living in Stockholm and I was bored and I wanted something to do. I now realise that what I was actually searching for is a way to speak about the loneliness that I felt at the time and for me to gain a greater social circle. So what I'm going to look at today is how did comedy do that for me and how can comedy do that for Estonia. So with this stand-up comedy thing, I mean, what is it? Is it just jokes? Is it just, fart sounds and dick jokes? Or is it actually is there some social commentary, some substance to it? Or is it more striking that we've got this social commentary and this in-depth stuff, but it's actually bookended in dick jokes and surrounded by fart sounds that somehow makes it a bit more appealing and a bit more open to everybody? I'm going to go through now the reasons why I think stand-up is just a little bit special. One thing I think is special is that there's no formal qualifications to be a stand-up. There's no school of stand-up, there's no university of jokes, there's no college of sexual innuendos. If there was, then I might become Lara, I don't know, I'm just saying. But that means there's the only qualification is that you are funny on the stage. And if you come to some of our open mics, you will see that even this is not necessarily a qualification. I think stand-up comedians come from all walks of life. I've seen doctors, I'm seeing heavy metal roadies, I'm seeing translators, IT consultants. I think what this does is give stand-up an accessibility. Anyone can do it. It's not pretentious actors up there on the stage. The comedians are not above us. They're not better than us in any way. Can you imagine Mitt Romney stand-up? A bit weird, it wouldn't work. Can you imagine if a stand-up comedian got on the stage and for 18 minutes lectured you about the power of comedy? What a wanker that guy would be. I think when famous people tell us stuff, we have a hard time to accept it. When Bono is out there and he's all the African kids, they need to dig for water so they can drink. And we're like, why don't you give them a diamond-studded shovel then, Bono? It's different when normal people tell you things. It feels more genuine, right? So take giving money to the African children. It's a very good cause. And it's quite easy to do. You can just do a direct deposit or something like that. But most people don't do it. It's not something we do. Why? I think two reasons. The first one, Bono is an idiot. The second reason is it doesn't affect us in our local area. We can't see the results besides that picture on the fridge. And at the end of the day, I think we want to see the results around us. And also, because we're quite shallow individualistic human beings, we want everyone to see us doing that thing so we get recognition for it as well. And I think stand-up taps into that because we can all go down to the local bar or cafe and be together and share that, and the comedian doesn't seem such a high and mighty kind of person. For all the big stadium tours that Eddie Izzard might do, he still seems like a guy you would have a beer with. And I think that we all wouldn't mind to be in a small bookstore and happen to stumble across a slightly inebriated Dylan Morrow. So I think that it can kind of work in like that. For me, the most crucial part of stand-up comedy is that it is self-written. That the comedian is the writer, the editor, and the performer. And I think that gives a certain genuineness to the performance. And because you're up there and you're performing your own stuff. And even if that stuff is a bit shit, which it probably will be for the first 200 times, it's okay because it's your stuff and we're somehow compelled to listening to some real thing that you're saying up there on the stage. There's a bit of power in that. Now, as stand-up comedians, we are, however, all kind of characters of ourselves up on the stage. However, for most comedians, the closer that character gets to their real personality, the better they are. Unless you're a really terrible person. there's a few. Now, the next thing about stand-up is that if you're the one writing it and there's no qualifications for it, stand-up is unedited in its communication. There's no one checking. Like when comedians come to our comedy shows, I don't look at their notes and say, yeah, you can say that, nah, you can't say that, blah, blah, blah. Like there's no one standing between the performer and the crowd. And in these days of communication, we've got blogs, and yeah, we've got Twitters, and you can Instagram your tofu salad to about 100,000 people at once. But there's something very powerful about face-to-face communication. I don't think I need to oversell this idea at a TED Talk. I think we get all of this. And there is TV and radio, yes, but TV and radio are very highly edited forms of communication. And also, in the sort of recent times, these forms of media, well, the quality is dropping quite drastically, I think, particularly on radio too. What was I going to say next? The thing is, though, okay, it's unedited, you can say what you want, but with great power comes great responsibility. You can perform bad jokes to a bad crowd and get a laugh. You can perform to some hillbilly, real knocky crowd and do racist, homophobic stuff, and you'll get a laugh out of them. But what's the intent of what you're saying? Are you maybe using sarcasm and irony to highlight the opposite point, or the good side? But what if, when you perform to that audience, your sarcasm and irony is ambiguous? Or at worst, what if you actually mean that stuff that you're saying? Think about, if you know this comedian, Jeff Dunham, and he's got this puppet, Ahmed the Dead Terrorist. You know, silence, I kill you! This one, right? Now, is Ahmed the Dead Terrorist, is he perpetrating a racist stereotype of Arabs? Or is that just good old-fashioned humour? Now, Jeff is on record as saying that he makes jokes of everybody equally, and it's just jokes. That's all it is. Maybe, fair enough. But if you're a white Christian male performing to a room full of middle Americans who are chock full of McDonald's and probably don't like Arabs very much to begin with, does your intent even matter at this stage? They're going to perceive it through their own worldview. You haven't confronted them at all with that. So just because stand-up is unedited doesn't mean that you can't, it means that what's going to come out is necessarily good. I think stand-up can also be important because we can deal with small issues. I'm up here on a stage on a red dot talking to you, very important people, and I'm talking about how, we're dealing with issues of homophobia. We're dealing with racism. Look at us, we're stand-up comedians. How fucking good are we? Blah, blah. All the great speeches of the world, they're all about big issues, right? Martin Luther King, JFK, Adolf Hitler, they're all the big things. The important people. But nobody is going to follow you and stand on the town hall square and listen to your impassioned speech about that Remy sells crappy toilet paper. And no one is going to gather around and listen to your amazing sermon about how you haven't had sex in the last 3 months. Stand-up is a way to deal with small issues, personal issues, local issues, and sort of gather together and deliver them like that. I think that's something that may be missing. All you've got to do is get your issue and stick a joke on the end of it. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to listen to it. The next key is that the sentence also needs to end in the word dick. To see how these things fit together. I think through all of these things, this makes people open. When they're laughing, you're sort of getting by and making them, hopefully showing them another different perspective on things. I think you're hopefully showing them something else, because I think people like discovery. And they feel kind of a reward. If you've got a point in your joke, and people are like, yeah, I get that. You see, yeah, that's a reward. They like that. And that makes them feel better, and then it continues. I think stand-up also can help because it's an opt-in medium. You're probably chosen to come. You've probably chosen to come and listen, and therefore you kind of, hopefully you're in the mood and you're more receptive to these things. When I think of communication to me, because that's my job, I think about how to communicate with people. To me, the purest form of communication was the ancient Greeks. All these people standing around in a circle there, and there's the intelligentsia, and there's the elders, and they're all discussing their topics, and they're all coming out with the most logical, rational solution to that. That is not going to work anymore. No one is going to come to some boring-ass poetry reading session anymore. We all, in this day and age, I think thanks to the media, we need our education peppered with entertainment. So I think by comedy is a way to put the sugar on the pill. It's the Trojan horse. It's the Stephen Elop who goes to work for Nokia that gets under the defences of everybody. No joke. It gets behind the defences, and then you can sort of say what you need to say to them. I'm willing to bet that in this room, a lot of you get your day-to-day information from shows like The Daily Show with Jon Stewart or The Colbert Report. You probably get much more information than you do by, say, just watching a clip of CNN or Talama TV. In fairness, that's not very hard. I think if you're fart in the background, that's more information than they get. But, so if comedy, I've just been trying to tell you that if comedy is a way that makes us more open, could we use that to heal as well? So we sometimes hear like comedians make hard jokes about difficult topics, and you know, stuff like, oh, too soon, dude, too soon, or you can't say that, or something like that. Now, I do agree, there are topics that are difficult to talk about, but I think the reality is that they are very much on the extreme, and time changes that very quickly. Now, I think the rule here is the harder the subject, the better the joke has to be. There's nothing off limits, but for example, you can try to make a joke about the sinking of the MS Estonia. That's a difficult topic. But if you make that joke, by Christ, it better be a good bloody joke. But if you manage to pull that off, and you make everybody laugh with that, we just shared a moment on that very difficult topic. And then maybe it's a bit of a cathartic experience. The taboos are not taboos anymore. I don't know. What about good old Mark R earlier this year? He was joking about him filling up the internet, and there's no more room on Facebook. And that was very funny. Then all of a sudden he had health problems, and it's not funny anymore. And that's right, there's nothing funny about what happened to Mark R. There's no criticism to be made. However, I'm not ruling out a Mark R joke. If I thought up a really good Mark R joke, I certainly wouldn't stroke it off the list. What about 9/11? 9/11, horrible experience for the world, for America, for New York. How do you move on? How do you deal? Americans are very big group dealers, right? Oh, they deal with it together. There was one moment that happened, and that was when The Late Show with David Letterman went back on the air. David Letterman said he felt the need to speak about this, and David Letterman's opening sort of talk when his show went back on the air is now regarded as one of the watershed moments for Americans dealing with the tragedy that happened then. Now, it wasn't comedy, it was just his opening talk. But I think it's really interesting that it wasn't the president who gave this talk, it wasn't a stately figure, it was a comedian. The people looked to a comedian for guidance. So what does this all mean for Estonia? I think Estonia needs more stand-up. I think Estonia needs stand-up done in Estonian language by Estonian people. I think you've come a very long way, and you've done a lot of healing already. You've fixed everything that can be fixed with a computer system or by ripping off Finnish tourists. You've done well, but what about hearts and minds in this matter here? I think there's something very about gathering in bars and cafes and sharing a joke. There's something special about it. It's very cathartic. It helps. Now what happens is I'm out talking, and I might meet some people, and they're very cool, hip, young Estonian people, very nice, and we have a great conversation about things. And then all of a sudden, after a while, the topic of Estonian nature comes up. And people are like, oh, no, but Estonians are very cold. Oh, very shy people. I'm like, what? This is not how you just were for the last 15 minutes. How couldn't you say that? I think that it's time for you all, I think it's time for you to sort of look around and for you to give yourselves the credit that you deserve. Every month, we have hundreds of people coming to stand-up comedy shows, and they're all laughing and cheering and yelling and being very un-Estonian. I'd like you all to look around and update your view of what an Estonian is. Now, this does not mean abandoning your culture. You can still eat kama for breakfast and go mushrooming, or believe that Tunnel Potter has real talents. But Estonia is a cool, open, international place. And the sooner that you recognize this, the sooner President Ilves can stop spending hundreds of thousands of euros on a Bring Him Home campaign. Do it for Thomas. So you all have to ask yourself, is this the Estonia that you wanted? I think, realize I'm a bit biased here, that by viewing stand-up and performing stand-up, you can help change things just a little bit. Maybe a bit, I don't know. Now, some comedians start stand-up to impress members of their preferred sex. When I say some, I mean all. But after a while of being on the stage, you make someone laugh. You make them laugh, and then eventually you make them think. And when you make someone think, you've given them an idea. And when you give someone an idea, that is the most powerful thing that you can give them, besides an STD. Do it in Estonian. Do it, go get up there. Talk about local issues. Talk about your friends and your life and your family and the backstory and all of this. If you're not performing, go and see your friends. Laugh at their stuff. Support them. Be nice to them. I know that's very hard for you because you're Estonians, but give it a try anyway. And if you write funny jokes and you support and you have a good time, we can build a really cool, amazing comedy scene in Estonia. And that will mean in the future that the only deportations that will go on in Estonia will be bad memories. Thank you very much.